We appreciate it.
Okay, very well.
Thank you.
And then we'll do the announcement. The regular meeting of the Aurora City Council for Monday, April 12, 2021 is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Here.
Councilmember Berzins,
Here.
Councilmember Coombs,
Present.
Councilmember Gardner,
Here.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson,
Here.
Councilmember Johnston,
Here.
Councilmember Marcano,
Present.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
There is a quorum, and I can unmute Roger to do the public call-in line.
Please do.
Good evening. The City Council welcomes feedback from residents at council meetings on both matters appearing on the agenda and during public invited to be heard. For those watching on Channel 8, please call 855-695-3475 and when connected, and for those already connected, press *3 to get in the queue to speak. Don't forget the star. We had about 5 people that appear to have pressed just the 3 while we were in music hold. You will hear a prompt when you press *3 confirming you are in line to speak to the operator, and then be able to continue listening to the meeting until the operator comes on to take down your information. Residents who would like to speak for public invited to be heard or on a specific agenda item and have not already been screened, please press *3 to sign up before that item is called by the clerk. Callers who do not sign up for public invited to be heard prior to it beginning and being called by the clerk may still press *3 to sign up and speak on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. Depending on the volume, it may take a couple minutes for the operator to connect, so please be patient. As long as you've heard the prompt, you do not need to press *3 again and can continue to listen to the meeting in progress until you are connected to the operator. Thank you.
I would like to take a moment of silence for all those that have been lost to COVID and or who are struggling to recover. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, I'm sorry, we didn't have the Spanish interpreter do her public call-in line speech.
Okay, please proceed.
Buenas tardes. Para interpretación en español puede llamar al número 1-877-820-7831 y la palabra cable es 2314511 y después va a presionar el botón de número.
Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2021.
Mayor Berzins.
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. Move to approve the minutes of February 22nd, 2021.
Dave Gruber, second.
Discussion. Would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption or the approval of the minutes from February 22nd, 2021?
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
The motion passes.
I'll now defer to the Mayor Pro Tem Bergen for an update, executive session update.
Yes, executive session. There were some water issues discussed, 3 issues exactly. And then we had discussion on a legal, a lawsuit.
Proclamations, National Youth Violence Prevention Week. I would like to defer to Councilmember Angela Lawson to read this proclamation, given that she's played a very strong leadership role in the city of Aurora to promote youth violence prevention.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to read this proclamation. Whereas young people across Aurora are falling victim to acts of violence at an increasing rate, and whereas in 2020, 17 homicide victims in Aurora were 25 years old or younger, and whereas Aurora is committed to ending youth violence by merging the efforts and resources available across the city to strategically tackle this issue as a public health crisis. And whereas building off a formal compact in 2020 between Aurora and Denver in jointly addressing youth violence as a public health crisis, Aurora will convene a youth violence prevention action table, a conglomerate of youth and community and city leaders to identify immediate and actionable items needed to support youth violence prevention efforts. And whereas in partnership with the YVPAT, the Aurora City Council approved funds for the Housing and Community Service Department to create a program to support the strategies developed by the YVPAT. And whereas the department hired a youth violence prevention program manager to implement the program to be used in combination with and across sectors to prevent youth violence before it starts, and to support protective community environments that reduce exposure to community level risk. And whereas a series of funding opportunities to expand youth zone pop-up events and programs targeting the risk and protective factors around youth violence will be available within weeks. And whereas the National Youth Violence Prevention Week raises awareness and educates students, teachers, school administrators, counselors, school resource officers, school staff, parents, and the public on effective ways to prevent or reduce youth violence. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mike Kaufman, the mayor of the city of Aurora, do hereby proclaim the week of April 12th through April 16th, 2021 as National Youth Violence Prevention Week, and encourage Aurorans to support the youth of their communities by volunteering to be a trusted adult and contributing positively in the life of at least one individual the age of 25. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Aurora, Colorado, to be affixed this 8th day of April, 2021. Signed by Mayor Mike Kaufman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lawson. Second proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Aurora has dedicated individuals and organizations who work daily to counter the problem of child abuse and to help parents obtain the assistance they need. And whereas our community is stronger when all citizens become aware of child abuse prevention and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs such as Ralston House succeeded because of partnerships among families, social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas all citizens, community agencies, faith organizations, and businesses will work to increase their efforts to support families. Now, therefore, I, Mike Kaufman, Mayor of the City of Aurora, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and encourage all Aurora citizens to join in renewing our commitment to preventing child abuse and learning what we can do to promote the safety and well-being of children. A witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to be affixed this 12th day of April 2021. Mike Kaufman, Mayor. Last proclamation. Aurora Arbor Week. Whereas Friday, April 16, 2021 is designated as Colorado Arbor Day, and whereas the observance of Arbor Day creates an awareness among citizens of the roles that trees play in our day-to-day lives, and whereas the City of Aurora has been certified as a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation for a 37th year in honor of its commitment to effective urban forest management, and whereas trees provide shade, control erosion, increase property values, beautify our neighborhoods, and enhance the economic vitality of business areas. And whereas to celebrate the significance of trees in our community and to celebrate Arbor Day, the City of Aurora will plant 33 trees in the City of Aurora's Municipal Justice Center to celebrate the expanse and vigor of Aurora's urban forest. Now, therefore, I, Mike Kaufman, Mayor of the City of Aurora, do hereby proclaim the days of April 16th through April 23rd, 2021 as Aurora Arbor Week, a witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to be affixed on this 12th day of March 2021. Mike Kaufman, Mayor, Aurora, Colorado. Public invited to be heard.
Hi, Mayor. It looks like we have one person that's on the line for public invited to be heard.
You very well.
Hi, Edgar is first. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Edgar Jauregui. I'm representative of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters here in Colorado. It's estimated that construction tax fraud is responsible for cheating our communities out of millions of dollars in tax revenues that are money that could be used for building or renovating schools, repairing roads, caring for veterans, sheltering homeless, and funding other essential public programs. The prevalence of our construction industry fraud has reached the crisis levels and must be stopped. The range practice where employers debate their tax responsibilities in several ways. Often, they intentionally misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay their workers in cash only arrangements. As a result, this business they reduce their income tax and payroll costs. The contracts, the contractors of or construction industry tax fraud punish the firm main construction firms who cannot compete with the low road labor costs of this fraudulent business. Those bad actors, employers, are undercutting their competition by defrauding workers and absorbing labor force. This is a real issue on our city, and that we wish to talk about more deeply. The carpenters and the United Brotherhood and the city of Aurora and the local 555 of carpenters, they gonna be part of the annual tax fraud action this week event. And I wish, please, and asking you, begging you to please resolve these kind of problems. Let's make some work together so that way they can, these people can get punished. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Adoption of the agenda. Staff has requested that we remove item number 10A, discussion of new Aurora fire rescue fees added to the 2021 budget, and requested that we remove that item number 11C be removed, 2021 RTD IGA resolution. And I would also like item number 20, item number 21, public invited to be heard to be moved in front of item number 21 to be moved in front of item 20A, report by the mayor. Motion?
Mayor, so moved.
Councilmember, moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Johnston.
Seconded by Councilmember Johnston. Discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So you're asking item 21, public invited to be heard, to proceed reports. I thought at the last meeting, we changed it so that you could still talk after the public invited. A council member could still talk after public invited to answer any concerns.
I can't remember what we did, but that's my motion. Is to move it. Yeah, Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to state that previous mayors have allowed council members the privilege to respond to public invited to be heard without shuffling the agenda. So that I think could potentially just be at your discretion. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I would prefer that they speak first and then we speak second. I think it's out of deference to public invited to be heard. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, with the clerk please call the roll on the motion.
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
No.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
No.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
No.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
There's 7 yeses, that the motion passes.
Very well. Will the clerk please read the title to item number 9A?
Item 9A is the reconsideration of Resolution 2024 to suspend certain council rules.
Motion?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Move to approve 9A.
It's been moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 9A. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 9A?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
The motion passes.
I need a motion to approve the consent calendar, item number 10B through 10J.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
I'd like to pull off 10B and 10J from the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, the question then before us is the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10C through 10H.
Mayor,
I think.
Councilmember Coombs.
so moved.
Second. It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Lawson. Discussion?
Mayor, I think you need to include 10I. You need
10I.
to modify the motion to include 10I.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Is that considered a friendly amendment, Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Who moved it? Who was the principal? Councilmember.
Seconded by Lawson.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10B. I'm sorry. You pulled off 10B, item number 10C through 10I. Discussion? I see none. Would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the consent calendar?
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
and Councilmember Murillo.
Councilmember Royo.
Sorry, you didn't hear me. Yes.
The motion passes.
Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 10B?
Item 10B is the consideration to award a competitively bid contract to Myers & Sons Construction, LLC, Sacramento, California, in the amount of $3,324,112.68 for the Tollgate and Sand Creek Interceptor Diversion Structures Rehabilitation Phase 2 project, project number 5809A.
Motion?
Mayor,
We
move
have
to
discussion first.
Motion first, then discussion. Councilmember Coombs.
Mayor, move to approve 10B.
Been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 10B. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
can we just get a brief presentation from staff for the benefit of the public?
Absolutely. Staff?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Councilman Coombs. So this project is going into a couple of our major sewer interceptors, so our large wastewater lines along Tollgate, the Tollgate alignment, and rehabilitating deteriorated concrete diversion structures. So areas in the pipe that hydrogen sulfide gas has eaten away at the concrete, caused them to be in a state of disrepair and susceptible to failure. So what this project will do is go into those areas, line them with fiberglass that will prevent the deterioration of the concrete in the future and extend the life of these structures by about 50 years. Wastewater flows, when they get into anaerobic conditions, result in the generation of hydrogen sulfide gas. That hydrogen sulfide gas eats away basically the calcium in the concrete, which causes the deterioration. So it's not unheard of. It's pretty common that we have to go into concrete wastewater structures that see some of that deterioration with the gas and rehabilitate either diversion structures and or manholes, things like that, that are the concrete. These are three fairly complex, large diversion structures, so it is a relatively expensive project. But again, we should extend the life of the line by about 50 years with the project.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Brown, Marshall Brown. Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10B. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 10J?
Item 10J is the consideration to extend a competitively bid contract to Brandon Sand and Gravel Company, Denver, Colorado, in the amount of $14,100,077.88 for the 2021 overlay program, project number 5817A, original bid number 5771A.
Motion,
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve item 10J.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Bergen.
second by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 10J. Discussion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
similarly, can we just get a brief presentation from staff for the benefit of the public?
Presentation by staff.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. This is regarding the 2021 street overlay program. So the overlay program, as you know, is a huge part of our maintenance around the city. It is to provide asphalt overlay and reconstructive patching on streets throughout the city. It's the most critical piece of maintenance that the city can do. And I've given multiple presentations on this at both TAPs, and I've spoken to the council before regarding this. We know that there's quite a shortfall in the funding on this program, but we do the best we can with what we've got. I know Cindy Collop is on as well tonight. I don't know if she has anything that she would like to add.
Cindy?
No, I think you did a great job there, Tom, covering it. But yeah, we will get this started and work from here shortly in April, May through October to get all those improvements made.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you. Questions of staff?
I have a question.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Tom, for the presentation. And then just to clarify for the public, these streets that we're doing the overlay program on with the would be for the major arterials, not for residential streets, correct?
Correct. Currently, our program only covers us on the arterials and collectors in the city. We do not have a overlay program in the residential areas.
Thank you. I had a inquiry, as you know, recently from one of my constituents in Saddle Rock, and they have quite a lot of damage on their neighborhood roads, extensive damage, and we're not able to completely reconstruct those roads because of the deficit that we have on our road maintenance program. And so the answer to the constituent was that we would patch those.
Correct. That's a Saddle Rock North.
Yes.
That's Saddle Rock North. We dispatched crews in there this week to start to do the assessment. There is going to be some extensive patching in that neighborhood.
Okay. Well, I want to just make sure that the public understands that we do not have the funds for, if I recall correctly, something like 67 years to do residential roads. Is that correct?
Yeah, and they just won't, they're just not going to last though.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor Dave Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber.
Tom, thanks for giving that presentation, and thanks for the ones you've given throughout the years. I wanted to point out, the fact, and if you could verify, that we have been underfunding roads to the tune of $20 million per year since about 2008. And as a result of that, the funding backlog is so great right now that we simply can't pave neighborhood roads. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, so the bottom line is that every time council makes a decision to divert dollars to anything other than roads, then it further exacerbates the problem that we've got with roads. So when we talk, anytime we're fortunate enough to have additional money in our revenue, it's not free money. That money should be going to deal with that $20 million deficit so that we could take care of the roads within our neighborhoods. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, sir.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of 10J?
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember McConnell,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Kaufman. I'm sorry, Mayor Kaufman. The motion passed.
Very well. The time is now 7:03. We will stand in recess for 5 minutes until 7:08 p.m. To give the ability for staff to do the announcement for the call-in line. We're now in recess.
Who would like to speak on a resolution or ordinance and have not already been screened, please press *3 before the item is called by the clerk. For those watching on Channel 8, please call 855-695-3475 to be connected to the phone line, and then press *3. Council is taking a short 5-minute break to allow for additional speakers to sign up. Again, please be patient and stay on the line until an operator is able to take down your information. As long as you've heard the prompt after pressing *3 and can hear music hold, the meeting is in progress and you are in line to speak to an operator. And if you've already queued up and pressed *3 and spoken to an operator, you do not need to press *3 a second time. Thank you.
The regular meeting of the Aurora City Council on Monday, April 12, 2021 is called back into session. Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 11A?
11A is Resolution 2021-21, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, adopting a debt policy.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Gardner.
motion to approve 11A.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, second by Councilmember Gruber, to approve item number 11A. Discussion? I have a question of staff. General obligation debt was mentioned. Do we have any significant general obligation debt?
No, the city does not have any outstanding
Is
general
there-
debt.
No outstanding? Okay. Further questions of staff?
Mayor,
Councilmember Combs.
I was hoping we could just get a little more general brief presentation from staff on the policy.
Good. Staff, please summarize the policy.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor Kaufman, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, and members of the City Council. I'm Teresa Sedmak. I'm your city treasurer, and I am here to ask for your consideration of the resolution adopting the city debt policy. The policy includes sections on debt issuance and management, swaps, disclosure, and post-issuance compliance. This recommended policy has been updated from the policy which was last adopted in 2012. And it is current with existing laws, rules, and regulations of the U.S. Internal Revenue Service and the Securities and Exchange Commission. So it outlines the types of debt the city may issue, the roles and responsibilities of staff and its consultants and leadership in the management of debt, talks about transaction-specific policies and structural elements of debt. Additionally, a section of the policy outlines the use and management of alternative financing instruments such as interest rate swaps in managing the debt portfolio. And importantly, this policy enhances the previous policy by including a section on compliance, particularly post-issuance compliance, which entails, among other things, the dissemination of reports and information and the reporting of material events that may happen in the city for the benefit of investors and underwriters of the city's debt. The policy dictates that it will be reviewed at least once every 3 years or as necessary. And it was reviewed by internal counsel as well as our external bond counsel, QTAC Rock. It was introduced at the M&F committee in February and presented at City Council study session on March 22nd. So I appreciate your consideration of this item, and I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments you may have about it.
Questions of staff?
Yes, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
You mentioned the interest rate swaps. Is that based on a call date?
We haven't used interest rate swaps much. They can be used to hedge our exposure. One we have, I believe right now, is it sets a cap on interest rates on some variable rate debt so that it can't exceed a certain amount. I wouldn't typically use debt use those products except in very specific circumstances where it protects the city from risk associated with interest rates.
So we would not do a swap to reduce our interest rate and pay off debt earlier?
No, you might do a refinancing, but I don't know that it would involve a swap.
Okay. Okay.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. Discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of 11A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't hear, did we get a first and a second? A motion and a second?
Yeah, who gave the Who
Was
gave the
Gardner
primary
Gruber.
motion?
Gardner and Gruber.
Gardner. Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Would clerk now please read the title of item number 11B?
Item 11B is the Aurora City Council support that housing is a human right. Resolution 2021-22, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support that housing is a human right. And Mayor, I do believe there are certain people that did not hear the Spanish interpretation request, so I'm going to let her do that again if that's okay.
Please proceed.
Para interpretación en español, llame al número 1-877-820-7831 y el código para español es 25461, el botón de número.
We do have public invited to be heard for this item.
Okay. Okay, please proceed with public invited to be heard.
All right, first up is Karen. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm 26 years old. From a very young age, I learned it's not easy to live in Aurora because of the high rent and continuous rent increase. For that reason, throughout my childhood, we moved a total of 11 times. This was very difficult because each time we moved, it also meant I had to switch schools. Seeing my parents struggling to pay their rent and having the constant fear of being evicted from my home is a fear that stays with you. For that reason, I decided to drop out of school at 9th grade to work and help my parents. No kid should go through that. I wish I could have been able to finish high school and graduate with my friends. Memories of those struggles cause a lot of sadness in me, and this is something that I do not want my 5-month-old daughters and my new family to ever experience. I do not want her to live with fear of being evicted and not knowing what will happen. Currently, we share a home with my in-law because my husband and I are not able to afford a place of our own. I want to feel safe and have a home where I'm not constantly fearing the cost of rent. I ask you, councilmen and women of Aurora, to support the resolution, housing is a human right, so no more young people like myself live in fear of not having a place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Maureen. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. My name is Lorene Banzi, and I am a resident of Aurora for the past 8 years. I used to live in Denver for many years, and my landlord kept on raising my rent and not maintaining the property. I had reached a point where I had to make a decision, and my decision was to move to Aurora in 2013 because Aurora offered more affordable housing than Denver and the diversity of the city offers us. As an immigrant myself, it just made me fit right in there. There are small businesses in the city of Aurora that accommodate my needs and makes me feel so much at home. As years have passed, Aurora started raising the rents to where it has become unaffordable to the residents of this diverse city, forcing families to move to the outskirts of the city as it is more affordable. This resolution is just not about housing or dignified housing, and it's here to keep families housed to prevent homelessness, which has become a major issue now. As an Auroran, it would make me very proud if you, the mayor, and the council members to pass this resolution, as housing is a human right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Alicia. Alicia, you have 3 minutes. Next is Alicia.
Buenas tardes.
Go ahead.
Mi nombre es Alicia. Tengo 16 años viviendo en Aurora. En el tiempo que tengo viviendo en Aurora, nos hemos cambiado de casa 7 veces. Tanta inestabilidad a esto ha sido muy difícil para mí y mi familia. Por 11 años tuvimos managers que eran muy abusivos y no respetan los derechos de los inquilinos.
I'm going to have our Spanish interpreter do the translation really fast.
Hello, for the last 16 years, my family and I have been moving around from place to place, which has been very difficult for us.
Disculpe.
Just want to confirm that's all she has to say.
Can she continue with her resolution? Sorry.
Can somebody translate that she's able to continue with the rest of her testimony? And also, can we just confirm that we're going to be translating chunk by chunk and we'll just go back and forth? It sounds like that's what's happening.
And I think part of the translation was missing. I don't think that was a full translation of what she said.
Yeah, the entire second portion was off. You're correct, Mayor.
Raluca, can you please get with the Alisa and see if what else she needs to say to the council members?
Entonces, señora Alicia, si me puede decir más porque no terminó su comentario.
Sí.
Y si me puede dar como solamente una o dos frases.
Ok, está bien. Por 11 años tuvimos managers que eran muy abusivos y no respetaban los derechos de los inquilinos. En ocasiones, cuando pagábamos la renta, no nos daban recibos y luego decían que no habíamos pagado y nos querían cobrar de nuevo, causando mucha inseguridad. El 14 de septiembre del 2006, mi hijo lo diagnosticaron con cáncer y no nos alcanzaba el dinero para la renta por el alto costo del medicamento. Nos fuimos a vivir los 4 a un estudio para poder pagar su medicamento. En diciembre del 2015 finalmente rentamos una casa y por los últimos 5 años el manager ha sido muy comprensible, pero ya no va a trabajar para los dueños y la actual manager ha cambiado mucho de los beneficios de nuestra vivienda. Por eso estoy trabajando con la concejala Cristal Murillo y en esta resolución, porque todo ser humano merece tener dónde vivir, así como necesitamos agua y comida. De igual manera, necesitamos un lugar digno donde poder descansar y sentirnos seguros. En el reporte de vivienda de Aurora mostró que los que tienen dinero tienen opción de rentar a su presupuesto o menos, pero un gran porcentaje de la comunidad como yo no tenemos esa opción. En Aurora tenemos muchas familias como la mía que tienen que vivir juntas por los altos costos de renta. Esta resolución nos ayudaría a ser más conscientes cuando se hable de la vivienda asequible. Como concejales representando a la comunidad, ustedes deben luchar porque todos como seres humanos tengamos una vivienda digna en Aurora. Por eso les pido, concejales de Aurora, que voten a favor de esta resolución y reconozcan la vivienda como un derecho humano.
Señora, necesita parar porque no me deja de interpretar.
¿Quiere que le hable más despacio?
Sí, como le comenté, tenía que decirme como una o dos frases para que yo pudiera interpretar.
Ok, está bien. Entonces no le voy a ir leyéndole pausadamente. Mi nombre es Alicia. Tengo 16 años viviendo en Aurora.
My name is Alicia and I have been living in Aurora for 16 years.
En el tiempo que tengo viviendo en Aurora,
in the time that I've lived in Aurora,
nos hemos cambiado de casa 7 veces.
We have changed since we've been living in Aurora for 7 times.
Tanta inestabilidad a esto ha sido muy difícil.
So much insecurity has been very difficult
para mí y mi familia.
for me and my family.
Por 11 años tuvimos managers
For 11 years, we had managers
que eran muy abusivos
that were very abusive
y no respetan los derechos de los inquilinos.
and they did not respect the rights of the people that lived there.
En ocasiones cuando pagábamos la renta,
At times when we would pay rent,
no nos daban recibos
they would not give us receipts
y luego decían que no pagábamos.
and then they would tell us that we didn't pay.
Y nos querían cobrar de nuevo, causando mucha inseguridad.
And then they would want to charge us again, which would cause a lot of instability.
El 14 de septiembre del 2006,
September of 2016,
mi hijo
2006,
fue
sorry.
diagnosticado con cáncer.
They diagnosed my son with cancer.
Y no nos alcanzaba el dinero para la renta.
We could not have enough money to pay the rent
Por el alto costo del medicamento.
because of the high cost of the medicine.
Nos fuimos a vivir los 4 a un estudio
We went to do a study
para poder pagar la medicina.
in order to be able to pay for the medicine.
En diciembre del 2015, finalmente,
December of 2015, we finally
rentamos una casa
we rented a house,
y por los últimos 5 años,
and for the last 5 years,
el manager ha sido muy comprensible.
the manager has been very understanding.
Pero ya no va a trabajar para los dueños.
But he will not work for the owner anymore.
Y la actual manager ha cambiado.
And the recent manager has changed
Muchos de los beneficios de nuestra vivienda.
It has changed a lot of the benefits that we had for living.
Por eso estoy trabajando con la concejala
That is why I've been working with the council,
Cristal Murillo, en esta resolución.
Crystal Murillo, in this resolution.
Porque todo ser humano merece
Because all human beings deserve
tener donde vivir,
to have a place to live,
así como necesitamos agua y comida de igual manera.
just like we need food and water the same way.
Necesitamos un lugar digno
We need a place to live
donde poder descansar y sentirnos seguros.
where we can rest and feel safe.
En el reporte de vivienda de Aurora,
In the report for the Aurora housing,
mostró que los que tienen dinero
it proved that those who have money
tienen opción de rentar a su presupuesto
they have an option to rent
o menos, pero un gran porcentaje de la comunidad como yo
but the larger percentage of people like me,
no tenemos esa opción.
we don't have this option.
En Aurora tenemos muchas familias como la mía,
In Aurora, we have a lot of families like mine
que tienen que vivir juntas por los altos costos de la renta.
who have to live together because of the high costs of rent.
Esta resolución nos ayudará a ser más conscientes
This resolution would help us
cuando se habla de la vivienda asequible.
to make living more affordable.
Como concejales representando a la comunidad,
Like councils representing the community,
ustedes deben luchar porque todos como seres humanos
you have to fight for all human beings
tengamos una vivienda digna en Aurora.
so that we can have a living situation in Aurora.
Por eso les pido, concejales de Aurora,
This is why I'm asking you, the councilors of Aurora,
que voten a favor de esta resolución.
Your time is.
to please
Oh.
vote in favor of this resolution.
Y se reconozca la vivienda como un derecho humano.
And to recognize housing as a human right.
Thank you very
Gracias.
much. Before we continue, would the interpreter like to ask Espinella and Melissa to call the Spanish interpretation line and perhaps give that number one more time?
Entonces, la gente que habla español, si puede llamar a este número, que es 1-877-820-7831. El código es 254610, el botón de número.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dwayne. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Peterson. I've been unhoused for 3 years now, and one of the many issues that I'm facing is that people who are homeless are being lumped into one category, meaning we all have the same issues and that we are deficient, and that's the reason we are unhoused. America has had a homeless crisis for almost 400 years, and we're still talking about it. For me, I've looked at every avenue imaginable for rehousing without any success. One of those reasons I'm told over and over again is that I'm able-bodied. Therefore, if I lost housing, therefore I can do it on my own. I don't have a drug addiction, a mental health problem. I'm college educated, and I feel personally that I'm being discriminated against. However, that being said, overall, I don't feel housing is a human right. I feel housing is a fundamental tenet to humanity. And the fact that we're still talking about it is, to me, very insulting. And I can understand when I look at the resolution, it's great on paper, but what I and other unhoused people need is action. We really want to see the person or persons next to us in their tent moving into housing. We're tired of being interviewed. We're tired of being asked the same questions over and over again. We're tired of being moved from one side of the street to the other. We need action, and I understand that this is a resolution and it's to address and to investigate issues regarding housing, but how much longer are we going to have to investigate a problem that's been around in America for almost 400 years? I want to thank you for this time and for the resolution, but for me personally, I'm just tired of being on the street. And it's very painful and it's very depressing. And in my opinion, there's no such thing, even before COVID, of affordable housing. That just does not exist. And I really feel that another problem is...
Your 3 minutes are up.
With, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Chris. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Hi, thank you. My name is Chris Rhodes. Shelter is a basic human need. Therefore, it should be a right. It used to be something that was provided to even slaves because slave owners understood that housing a slave was more beneficial than leaving slaves exposed to the elements. Today in Aurora, though, we have to beg the majority of city council to even deem the working men and women of our city as worthy of the basic life necessities slaves have long been granted. Think about what that says about those of you that we are having to beg today to vote yes. Slavery is the most heinous thing imaginable in American society, yet some politicians, employers, and property owners in Aurora do not even think workers in Aurora deserve the basic provisions slaves were provided. As someone currently living in Ward 3 and looking for an apartment to rent elsewhere in Aurora, I can assure you the options are bleak. I make a few dollars more than minimum wage. Combined with my partner, we make a medium household income for Aurora. What that means in terms of housing options is, if you are single, we would be forced to pay around 75% of our income on just cheap rent, one-bedroom apartment. Or combined, it's just under 50% of our income. That is not including transportation, food, communication costs, or saving for an emergency. To try and achieve homeownership that is so vital to retirement or any sense of economic stability in such a scenario is impossible. Yet we are assumed to be irresponsible or lazy if we can't own a home by the majority of council. What is the response of politicians when we citizens bring this up to people that are supposed to represent us? They often hide behind cowardly phrases like supply and demand, as if we are too blind to see the role legalized bribery by developers plays in constantly creating a supply which is not demanded. The demand is for affordable housing. All I see being built is luxury housing. It is perfectly possible to provide housing that is within 25 to 33% of all incomes at a profit for developers. The only reason we do not have it is cowardice and corruption by our politicians. As for the non-working people of Aurora, not only is the morally right thing to do to housing, it is also a cheaper option than leaving them homeless. The majority of council seem utterly disgusted by the sight of homeless people in Aurora and complain about poor people being a burden to taxpayers. Why not solve that problem by providing them housing as a right? It will free up our police and medical professionals from having to deal with the effects of keeping them in the streets. It is the morally just thing to do, and it saves taxpayers at a time when we are facing budget shortfalls. There is no reason to oppose housing as a right other than a stupid belief that suffering for poor people creates character, or feeding your egos that those with wealth are superior to the rest of us. Do the right thing and vote yes on the resolution that housing is a human right. Or pray there is no creator to answer to.
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you. Next up is Nicholas. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Aurora City Council. My name is Nicholas Marcus. I'm speaking to you all today to urge support in that housing is a human right. 20 years ago, my family and I became residents of Aurora. My parents were able to move us into new homes. Thank you. Life was good. We went to good schools. We made new friends, and we enjoyed our new team. That's 2018. As we all know, countless families and individuals were affected by this housing crisis. My family was one of them. My father's wages became stagnant. My mom lost her job entirely, and ultimately we lost our home. This was difficult to grasp as a young child. My parents worked hard to get to where they worked. Both my parents worked long, strenuous hours, including many weekends. Despite the sacrifice and effort, though, they lost their home. Many And our face the same thing now. And the pandemic is only making it worse. Many of us who lived before the pandemic will only live if we survive. And now we're even more vulnerable. Being behind in rent, other months' bills and responsibilities, combined with the lack of existing housing opportunities, we find ourselves in despair. This is unacceptable. If we learned anything in this pandemic, it should be the necessity of a stable home and housing opportunity for all people. Please align yourself with these learnings and vote yes. Housing is a human right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dolan. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi. Yeah. Hi. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks for responding finally. So, basically this has turned into a big kerfuffle. Basically, you guys, I'm pretty sure everyone on council owns their own property. And you know what that means, except for Allison Coombs. Allison Coombs, I believe, is the only one that doesn't own her own property. Now, the resolution, yeah, sure, I agree with the resolution, but it doesn't do anything. Resolutions don't do anything. We're just tap dancing, okay? It's not a law. It's not enforceable. So, Crystal Murillo, I want to know, you were on the Housing Committee for many years, and Allison Coombs was on that Housing Committee for many years. Of course, we didn't have access. The Housing Committee isn't posted on YouTube channel, right? Because you guys don't want to, I don't know why, but yeah, and then the executive session. Okay, so the executive session is closed off to the public because why? Because that's where the negotiations with developers happen. And when I go to these meetings, these committees, no one wants to talk about what's going on with the developers because it's all classified, top secret stuff. Well, guess what? We pay your salary. Therefore, we need transparency, accountability, and accessibility. Okay, so the state legislature is responsible for affordable housing. Fine. Why don't you reach out to them? We have a majority in the House, in the Senate. We've had the majority in the House and the Senate for many years. Nothing's getting done. You guys are tap dancing. Let's see some fire in the eyes. There is no, it's just, these stories are so sad, especially from the Hispanic women. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. Reach out to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Reach out to the federal government. Reach out to the state legislature. This is an emergency. Where the hell, okay, Crystal, you say Jim Twombly has all the power. No, he doesn't. You're the one that makes the laws. The council makes the laws, not Jim Twombly. By the way, if Jim Twombly has all the power, where the hell is he? He shows up once in a while to talk about infrastructure and bonds. Give me a break. You guys are pathetic.
Thank you. Next is Zebib. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Viv, and I'm in Ward 3, and I second the second caller, Zara. Okay. So I've lived in Aurora for many years, and the last few years I've been living at Fairways at Lowry, and it's been a horrible experience. Like, they do not care about us whatsoever. We live in this 400 square foot apartment paying almost $1,000, and we have rats, mice, and roaches occupying our unit, and the office doesn't care to do anything about it. Even when we ask them to put us in a hotel per the warrant of habitability law, they refuse to do that. They told us to go to our insurance and have them take care of it. And they're just so disrespectful. A lot of us are people of color, immigrants, and I'm pretty sure if we were well-to-do white people, they would not be doing this shit to us. Like, another caller, like, I second what they said. I don't even understand why you guys think that we have to beg you to look out for us. And I don't even understand how you guys, those of you who claim to be Christians, look at yourselves in the face and continue to put profits over people. I'm pretty sure Jesus would be appalled by your decision. I'm done.
All right, thank you. Next is Richard. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. I'm calling in support of the resolution to declare housing as a human right. I moved to Aurora when I was 10 years old. I attended Smoky Hill and graduated from the University of Colorado. I really love this city, and it saddens me how unaffordable it's become to my neighbors, to my friends, to my family. You know, all human beings deserve the right to free speech, practice of religion, due process. These are things that are very intuitive for Americans like you and I. And we know this because our human dignity and livelihood require it. But in the same way that we cannot attain true happiness without these rights, like the right to free speech and practice of religion, so many of your neighbors cannot achieve the same because of the chronic stress of poverty and houselessness. We cannot fully enjoy spending time with our family if we are stressed about being evicted. We cannot take good sleep if we are lying on a cold concrete day in and out worrying about our possessions being stolen. The UN recognized housing as a human right in 1948. So 73 years later, it's about time Aurora did the same. By voting yes, you'll be cementing yourself on the moral and just side of history, and I really hope that you do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Sydney is next. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Sydney Hawkins. I live in Ward 3, and I am calling in support of the resolution to declare housing as a human right in Aurora. I agree with the previous callers that have commented on why housing is a human right and how it improves the quality of life. And also, I think that this resolution is a great step in informing strong housing policy moving forward. And so I am really supportive of the council people that have pushed this resolution forward, and I hope that it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Alex. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hey, can everybody hear me? Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you. My name is Alex Luna. I'm the director of organizing with UNE, United for a New Economy, and I'm here to speak in favor of housing as a human right. You know, growing up, and I think we're seeing a lot of the impacts of what's happening and the frustration and anger, you know, and experiencing that as a young person, seeing, you know, my parents have to make a constant choice whether to pay the bills, to pay for lights or food, or having to pay the rent or mortgage, is a very challenging choices that our families are continuing to face even now. And being in Ward 3 and speaking to constantly people in the community, we're seeing the direct fear of families being displaced at this time. And families speaking into this very call and very moment is the fear of not having a place to stay and live and having that security. And we're seeing that frustration and anger coming out this evening. And we're also seeing an opportunity for us to step forward into something bolder and something new together. And so when we talk about housing as a human right, it's an opportunity for us to step forward and collectively to making sure that local communities and cities and counties have the opportunity to create decisions and choices to make sure that family has this dignified right. Because right now with this prohibition ban, that creates opportunity of affordable housing, it's saying that community does not know best. And right now what this resolution allows us to be able to say that no, we know what's best for Aurora, and we want to make sure that we pass a housing solution that best works for our family. And so that's why we invite you this evening to make sure to walk with us as community, to look for deeper solutions with this resolution, and to make sure that we can take bigger and bolder steps to make sure that Aurora has dignified housing for everybody. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. That is the last person in line, Mayor.
Mayor, let me double check with the call-in line for the Spanish interpreter and make sure she doesn't have anybody, okay?
Please.
Living in Aurora for the last 15 years.
Mi familia y yo hemos vivido por 10 años en un apartamento pequeño.
My family and I, we have been living in a small apartment for 10 years.
Después de 10 años tuvimos que mudarnos a una casa para tratar que nuestros hijos tuvieran un espacio mayor.
Because we want to have a bigger space and a better quality of life, we moved to a bigger place, to a house.
Lo cual no fue.
But we have to share the housing with another 2 families. And this became a big issue because we have other expenses to share as well. That is why we only live there for 1 year. And that is why we have to move to a different place. Now we're living here for the last 4 years. But one of the biggest issues that we have is the high cost of the rent. In our home, my husband is the only one working, so this is too much just for him to pay for the rent. In the last couple of weeks, the landlord, the owner of the house, told us to leave the house because she plans to sell the house.
Para nosotros ahora es comenzar de nuevo a buscar un lugar para nuestros hijos.
And that is becoming a big issue for us because now we have to find a new place for me and my family and our children.
Por eso pido que consideren que como yo hay más familias que esperan.
And that's why I want you to consider our situation. There are other families and other people like us in the same situation.
Ver la resolución a la vivienda accesible.
That is why we want to support this resolution for better housing.
Para evitar que tengamos que estar moviéndonos de un lugar a otro.
In that way, we can avoid to continue moving from one place to another.
Ricardo, they have 3 minutes.
Por su tiempo para escucharnos, espero que accedan a la resolución. Gracias.
Thank you so much for listening to us, and I hope you will consider this. Thank you.
En Aurora, 18 años.
Good afternoon. My name is Leti Palomino, and I have lived in the city for 10 años, 10 years.
Yo soy miembro de UNE, Unidos por una Nueva Economía.
Also, I am part of the organization Unidos for a New Economy.
Yo me he movido de casa 4 veces.
I have to move 4 times.
Donde vivo actualmente tengo viviendo aquí 6 años.
Right now, I'm living in the same location for the last 6 years.
Cuando entramos aquí empezamos a pagar 1,150 de renta.
When we just moved there, we start paying $1,056,000 for rent.
Y cada año que se vence el contrato nos aumentan $100.
And every year I have to renew my lease, they increase the rent in $100.
Yo me molesté con el dueño porque mi casa ocupa reparaciones y no las hace.
And I'm really upset with the owner because the house requires maintenance and other things, but they don't pay attention to those.
Con esta situación de la pandemia, mi esposo lo descansaron del trabajo.
Because of the pandemic, my husband lost his job.
Nos atrasamos con el pago de la renta y ya nos mandó el dueño a corte.
And because of that reason, we were behind paying with the payment on the rent, and now we have a court citation. We have to leave the house.
Nada más que el dueño nos ayudó a meter aplicación a la ciudad de Aurora.
But the owner also has been helping us to apply for assistance with the city of Aurora.
Y nos pagaron la renta cubriendo este mes de abril.
And that is how we were able to pay the rent in the month of April.
Y yo hablé con el dueño para decirle
And I talked to the owner.
que ahora que estamos a frente de la venta, que si nos podía hacer reparaciones que necesitaba aquí en mi casa.
And we are talking to the owner to see if we can get further assistance.
Y él me dijo que sí, pero a veces siento que cumple.
The owner told her that he will consider, but she's not sure that he will later on.
Voten a favor del concejal.
Please support this proposal.
De la resolución declarando.
Please support and vote in favor of this resolution.
Vivienda como un derecho humano. Gracias por su atención. Les agradezco mucho su tiempo.
Because housing is a human right. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you.
Y que Dios los bendiga a todos los concejales por estarnos apoyando en esta crisis que estamos pasando.
And God bless all of you because you know that we are having a difficult time with this pandemic. La siguiente persona. 3 minutos brevemente. ¿Su nombre?
Hola, me llamo Angela Melissa Remolina Trujillo.
Good evening, my name is Angelina Remolisa Murillo.
Llegué a Colorado hace 2 años y medio con mi esposo y mis 2 hijos.
I came to Colorado 2.5 years ago with my husband and my children.
Me ha encantado este hermoso estado donde nos abrió las puertas y nos acogió.
I love this state because they embrace us and have been so nice and very nice to us and the whole family.
Para un mejor futuro para mis hijos y mi familia.
Because we are looking for a better future for us and my family and my children.
Durante estos 2 años y medio me he mudado de casa 4 veces.
During the last couple of years, I already moved 4 times from one house to another.
Desafortunadamente, en este momento atravesamos.
Unfortunately, we are facing different situations right now.
Un desalojo injusto.
The owner of my house wants us to leave very soon.
Debido al desalojo, tuve que buscar casa, pero desafortunadamente no cumplo con las condiciones para alquilarlas.
Under these difficult times, I'm still looking for a new housing, but it's very difficult because they ask for different requirements, so I'm not sure I will be able to find new housing soon.
Al atravesar este problema, una señora, al ver una casa, me robó $300.
And because I'm living in very difficult times, some people try to take advantage, and I just lost more than $300.
Porque la condición de su casa no estaba apta para vivir y ella dijo que no la iba a reparar.
Because the owner of that house didn't want to spend any money fixing the house. The house faced critical safety and healthy issues.
La oportunidad de Aló.
Sí, siga, por favor. Tiene unos minutos más, un minuto más.
Okay. A través del desalojo que presento, tengo que presentarme a corte el 16 de abril.
And now I'm facing legal issues. I need to go to court to fight for my house.
Por eso les quiero pedir que se unan.
And that is why I'm asking you to join our fight.
A tomar acción.
So you can take action.
Para que realicemos un cambio en la comunidad.
So we can make change in our community.
Sobre la resolución.
Please be in favor of the resolution.
Donde tú seas parte de este gran cambio.
So you can be part of this big change.
De una vivienda digna y asequible.
For a better housing condition and better quality of life.
Como un derecho humano. Muchas gracias.
Because housing is a human right. Thank you so much. Siguiente, por favor, 3 minutos.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Nereida. Tengo 20
Good afternoon.
años.
My name is Nereida. I'm working construction and I have 3 children.
Al principio mi esposo y yo vivimos con otros miembros de familia los primeros años.
During the first few years, I have to live with other family members in order to be able to pay for the rent.
Ya que mi esposo empezó con un mejor trabajo.
And later, when my husband got a better job and better income,
rentamos solos un basement por ser más barato que un apartamento o una casa.
and I was able to rent a small basement because it's cheaper than rent a house of a bigger apartment.
El compartir vivienda con otra familia, ¿no?, fue muy difícil al no tener nuestro propio espacio y comodidad.
The family was extremely difficult to share the same space with other family members. There is nothing like to have your own space, your own home.
En el tiempo que hemos vivido en Aurora, nos hemos cambiado 13 veces de casa por los altos costos de renta.
During the last few years, during all the time that we have been living in Aurora, we have to relocate and move more than 13 times because increasing costs of the rent and the housing.
Fue difícil para nosotros y más para mis hijos porque a ellos los cambiaba de escuela cada vez que nos mudábamos.
And you have to understand that moving from one place to another with the family and my children, that brought different implications in their education plans.
A mi hijo el mayor le tocó asistir a 5 escuelas diferentes durante este tiempo.
For example, during these years, my older son had to attend 5 different schools because we were moving from one place to another.
Fueron muchos cambios para mis hijos.
Too many changes for my children.
Tuvimos varias malas experiencias. Rentamos un basement con contrato por 1 año y todo fue muy bien.
We have so many bad experiences. For example, we have to rent a basement for a year in order to continue with our life.
Pero al siguiente año no hablamos de renovar el contrato y el dueño nos fue subiendo $10 cada mes.
And the following year, because they didn't sign a lease, the owner of the basement want to increase the rent every month.
Esto se nos hizo muy difícil e injusto y decidimos mudarnos otra vez más.
And because those situations and conditions, we have to move again.
Ahora tenemos un propietario que es justo y comprensible.
Now we have a landlord who is a good person.
Ya que tenemos 3 años en esta casa y estamos más estables como familia.
And now we have more stability as a family, living in the same place for the last 3 years.
Yo he trabajado y apoyado la resolución de que la vivienda es un derecho humano.
I have been working with other people in favor of this resolution because we strongly believe that housing is a human right.
Porque familias de Aurora estamos batallando mucho en cuestión de vivienda.
Because many families in Aurora are struggling dealing with housing issues right now.
Y todos tenemos el derecho de una vivienda estable.
Everyone in the city has the right for better housing.
Les pido a los concejales que voten a favor de esta resolución. Muchas gracias.
I'm asking all the members of the City Council to support and vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you so much.
Is there another?
No.
No, no more people. Thank you. Gracias.
I need a motion for the approval of item number 11B.
Mayor,
Councilmember Moreno.
thank you. Move to approve item 11B.
Been moved by Councilmember Moreno and seconded by
Second.
Councilmember McConnell to approve item number 11B. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Mario.
Thank you. I just wanted to, give a little more context. I know this is not the first time this group has heard about this, and working with a group of residents in the community to reaffirm our values. Housing, it's a resolution, which again isn't a specific law per se, but it is resolutions serve to function as a statement of support. And as we have heard in past conversations, what I want to reiterate today is that this is an aspiration of the city to value and to move policies moving forward that center people and housing, and that housing should be a right for folks to have access to that. And this comes after, I think, 3-ish years of pushing for and actively commissioning studies and needs assessment on housing, inventory stock assessments as well, all culminating to what passed last December, which is our affordable housing study. So this is moving right along in those conversations, trying to center our conversations with equitable outcomes as we start and will be voting on actual policies in this year and moving forward. If you guys have had an opportunity, and for the public as well, that housing study is kind of like a roadmap. And so it comes up with housing, it outlines housing policies. And I believe this housing as a human right resolution is complementary to that and is sort of, again, anchoring before we get into any of the policies. And we have passed some, one-off policies, but the strategic approach centering us in an equitable outcome before we start voting on those individually. And I do also just want to point out, and big kudos to our staff. I was informed that our original interpreter called in ill tonight. And so we had a backup interpreter who actually decided not to work past 7:30 p.m. and just interpreting. So big kudos to our staff. And it was a little uncomfortable, I think, for all of us to kind of work through some of those issues, but thank you for the utmost professionalism and working through some of those technological issues. And I hope we're able to follow up with the vendor, because that was unacceptable to just leave a live city council meeting when folks needed that interpretation. And I hope we can address that in the future. And this is not, I hope we can work through just the translation challenges moving forward. So again, there were some comments in the beginning as well that were, people are angry, and I totally understand. This is not a new concept, and I'm really, I felt their frustration, and I'm hoping that we can channel that into some really productive conversations moving forward. So I would urge and ask my colleagues for you all to vote for this resolution, and hopefully the upcoming pieces of legislation around housing as well. Thank you.
Seeing none, the question before us.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You were muted when you were asking for
further discussion.
So can I speak, please?
Councilmember Combs.
Okay, thank you. So, as we discussed in study session, the concept of human rights is really about guaranteeing the preconditions for freedom and thriving for our people. And I hope that listening to the testimony of people that called in tonight, we can all acknowledge and recognize that the situations that they talked about were lacking in those preconditions for both freedom and thriving. People cannot make free choices when they're in these types of circumstances. And some of the other preconditions for freedom and thriving, like education, like health, are also undermined by the lack of access to adequate housing, as was also laid out so well by people in sharing, the really sad and concerning stories that came forward. And so I hope that it's very clear that when we look at human rights as those preconditions for people to be free in society, to thrive in society, that they cannot secure those when they're in the kinds of conditions that people have described living in within our city.
Further discussion. Further discussion.
Persons.
Councilmember Brosens.
Thank you. Yes, I could hear that in their voices. It reminded me a lot of the testimony of the mobile home parks that we had, what, 2, 3 years ago? And, you know, those were desperate folks, and it breaks your heart to hear what some people are going through. But honestly, really don't know what went on tonight. I felt like this resolution to them thinks that is a sign that maybe there's going to be public housing, free housing. I mean, from what they said, I don't think a lot of them understood that this is a resolution. And like you said, in policy committee, resolutions really mean nothing. You know, it's just a lot of words on a piece of paper. And I get that. I mean, some fella even likened it to slavery. I mean, seriously, that's that says a lot in his mind that he thinks, you know, that the lack of housing is like slavery. But we have to remember that the housing study that we did came back that Aurora has some of the most affordable housing in the metro area. And that seems to have gotten lost along the way. And another thing, we have so many builders ready to build, and they're not, you know, they're just like this, ready to go, and a lot of them are just not getting approved or getting held up for one reason or another. So, you know, I'm saying as council members, we all know that. So, you know, if we could help this process move along and get new ones built. So, you know, it can be the new ones are built so these folks can move over here and other folks can move in. You know, it's a round robin. And I think that's going to help a lot to get more inventory. There's a lot more that we need to do to make housing affordable. You know, I've said many times, it's insurance, it's property taxes, it's water, it's electricity. I mean, it's just on and on the costs of a house or an apartment. And I don't see insurance rates going down. I don't see taxes going down. I don't see it. And I don't see Aurora having the money to build free homes, free houses, free apartments. You know, so we're going to have to work together and not point fingers at each other. But, you know, according to this call to action that went out on social media, I don't know, maybe they misunderstood with some of the language in that because it talked about public housing and cheaper housing. So, you know, I'm all for, you know, lower housing, but I can't support this because as I said before, I don't think it's in our constitution for us to say what's right and what's not a right. I think we just need to work together to get it done instead of just having a lot of words on a piece of paper. So
Mayor.
that's all I wanted to say.
Mayor.
Further discussion. Councilmember Moreno.
Yeah, thank you, Marcia, for your comments. I guess I'll just start off with, I hope that we can be consistent with the way in which we treat resolutions. I hope that nobody who supported the opposed hate crimes against our Asian Pacific Islander community via resolution thinks that that's meaningless verbiage, because that too was a resolution. So I just like to call that up, and hopefully we can be consistent with the way in which we treat different avenues and different ways of making and affecting change. Again, I think the housing resolution, the housing study is compromised of many different specific outcomes. And so we'll be talking about those as the year progresses. And so, you know, this is meant to be a resolution as a statement of support and of values. You're right. Human rights are not constitutional rights. They are just rights because we are people and we are human and we deserve to live and exist. So that is the distinction between human rights and constitutional rights. They live independently. I was also, so I just want to make that distinction. That is not unclear to me. And I also want to clarify that I think the folks that I've been working with are clear on the potential of this resolution, what this resolution does and does not do. Whether they have hopes and aspirations otherwise, I can't mandate or dictate, and they're entitled to their First Amendment opinion and right to exercise and what they hope. So, I won't speak to their individual I guess additional comments, but we've been very clear working, very clearly on what this resolution is and isn't. And they still chose to support, even though, and work through all these technological challenges to give their comments today. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming to speak. I don't agree with everything that was said tonight. I'll be clear there, but just because they speak Spanish doesn't mean that they're incapable of understanding what this resolution does. So I do want to make that also that clarification on their behalf.
Further discussion.
Mayor David.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gruber.
So I have a few questions about the specific wording. In the first whereas, it says, let's see, it refers to the Housing Right Act. Could someone explain the reference? What's that is referencing? Or the human housing is a human right act. The all capital letters. It's a formal. It looks like a formal name. What is the Housing is a Human Right Act?
Councilmember Gerber, this is Tim Joyce. There is a Housing is a Human Right Act in the U.S. legislature. It's proposal by someone in this U.S. legislature that served as a foundation to write this resolution.
All right, so it doesn't exist yet. It hasn't been voted on by Typically, when you have a capitalized name and you're formally naming something, it's something that exists. So this is a draft act written by someone in the Senate or the House that hadn't been voted on by either body and has not been signed by the president. So, but that is not. So my problem is that is not spelled out in our resolution. We reference something that frankly is right now just a draft on a piece of paper. Is that what you're telling me?
That is correct.
All right, I'm disappointed with that. Let me go down to the therefores. It says the Aurora City Council resolves its support for the concepts and principles of housing is a human right. Where are the concepts and principles identified?
Councilmember, what you've heard today is all the concepts and principles that I'm aware of.
So there's nothing in this resolution that refers to something we can point to say these are the concepts and principles that we're voting on. So it seems that the only thing we're really voting on is a title, right? So housing is a human right. Again, there's no meat under the bun. There's no explanation as to, first off, the reference. Like you said, the reference doesn't exist yet. It's a draft draft act in Congress that hadn't been voted on. And then the concepts and principles are specifically not stated. Typically in the section, you would say, and here's the principles and concepts. So we're going to be voting on first off, we're voting for an act that hadn't been approved by Congress, so we don't know what it's going to be by the time, if it makes it to the president for a signature. And then secondly, the concepts and principles aren't defined. I simply can't support that. It's not there's not enough here to vote on other than the title. The final thing is that I also agree that many of the people who called in made it sound like council, by doing this, they were led to believe that by council voting on this, that they will be somehow or another we will deal with rent issues that they have. We will deal with affordable housing issues that they have. This will solve all of that. And by making the points that I did, that there are no concepts and principles, there's nothing here for the city to enforce. That leaves a big gap, and I feel disappointed for the people that have spoken to us with such hope in their voice, because we won't be able to do this. This resolution doesn't do anything. It doesn't even identify what we're voting on, the concepts and principles. So I will not support this, and I apologize to those people who called in believe that this resolution would do that for them.
Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano, then Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, 1 second here. Yeah, so I guess first I want to start by saying that we have several other resolutions on our agenda tonight, so I don't think that they're meaningless, and I'm sure that the sponsors of the other resolutions might take some umbrage with that characterization. To me, resolutions are valuable statements. They're value statements, rather, and they are meaningful. They provide a vision. They let the public know that we hear them and that we want to do something about the things that they're concerned about. So this resolution recognizes the reality of the struggle for many of the families here in Aurora to afford and maintain dignified housing. As you all heard from some of our callers, they're either unable to find a home or would be severely cost burdened based off the options that are currently available. And I kind of want to touch on a few other things here. We've actually have had this coming from a president, actually, as far back as 1944. I'm not going to read the whole second Bill of Rights to you, but among them are the rights to a useful and remunerative job, to earn enough to provide adequate food, clothing, and recreation, for every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom and, from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home and abroad, and the right of every family to own a decent home. And when we're talking about, I guess going back to the human rights conversation that we had, the tenets actually of a right to adequate housing are laid out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can actually find an entire document that walks you through what all of those are. And in case you're curious as to like more local applications of the right to housing as a concept, Canada actually has a right to housing law in place. South Africa does as well, and Massachusetts in the United States does. So I think we would be the first municipality, or at least among the first municipalities, to take this kind of a stance. As to what policy looks like, that will come later. I definitely have some ideas. I'm sure you all do as well, and I look forward to discussing those. But I think that setting this vision, making this declaration to our residents that we hear them, we understand, and we actually aim to act on this is important, and I will be supporting this resolution as a result. Thank you.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you. Getting messages from folks who are listening in, and it's unfortunate that they're not able to respond and say very clearly they are clear on that this is a resolution and what this does and does not do. So I apologize for somebody apologizing on your behalf. That's really inappropriate. Just wanted to make that clarification. And then additionally, housing is a human right is referring to the name of this piece of legislation, which is a proper noun, which is required, is meant to be capitalized. So this is not based on a piece of legislation that hasn't passed. That might have been part of our stakeholdering process to look at other pieces of legislation that were also similar to this. I think it adds more credibility to this process that not only has the UN declared human rights, has a declaration on human rights with housing being part of that, that is like that is the highest level of intergovernmental cooperation. Our government, there is a bill active being pursued to support housing as a human right. So not only do we have, other nations agreeing that this is important, our Congress talking about the fact that this is important, but that here at the local level, we also support that as well. So I actually think that adds to the credibility of this conversation, and want to encourage my colleagues to not make inferences about what people do and do not understand just because they speak a different language. and aren't here to defend themselves otherwise. I think that's wholly inappropriate. And I would like to reiterate that I have confirmed, and it's insulting that we could spend months on end talking about this, and just because there was, poor translation and they don't speak English very well, that you would dare to, say that they don't understand that. And I think that's been very clear. And that's that rhetoric is just unacceptable. So I take issue with that. And, you can try and walk that back and try to clarify X, Y, or Z, but I think that rhetoric has been made very clear, and I'm disappointed to hear it. So I hope we can get back to the substance of this resolution and again, go back to the fact that this is a visionary statement. I have no problem saying that we believe housing is a human right, that should be visionary and that should be aspirational for the city of Aurora. That is something that has been affirmed time and time again by a city attorney in different settings, and specifically in our last study session where we discussed this as well.
Further discussion.
Mayor Dave Gruber.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gruber, then Councilmember Coombs.
Okay, so I don't even know what that was. Let me go back again. When I talked about the fact, I'm talking about specifically what's written down. I'm not making this up. The first whereas has capitalized Housing is a Human Right Act. The City Council of Aurora does not create acts. Congress creates acts. And as we heard from the attorney, this act has not been voted on by the House and the Senate, has not been signed by the president. So when I say this is wrong, that we should not have referenced a draft act in Congress, that was my point. Secondly, again, we do not have the concepts and principles defined. Finally, the interpretation of not the Spanish speakers, but the English speakers, as well as the translation of the Spanish speakers, made it sound as if this was going to solve the problems that they identified. That is clearly not the point. That was the point that I was making. I don't owe an apology to anybody. I don't owe, I'm not walking anything back. I'm reading exactly what this says, and this is an incomplete piece of legislation that does not identify what we are going to do, and it doesn't have anything in the results. That was the point that I was making.
Mayor, just a point of clarification. I'm sorry, you're muted, Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs and Councilmember Mario.
Okay. So because we did talk about the UN Declaration on Human Rights in study session, and if there were questions about that in study session, we could have discussed that then. But I do think I touched on a number of these in my defense of it at the time and in my summary here today, but I'll reiterate them in any case about what does housing as a human right mean according to the UN, which is kind of the home of much human rights discourse. The right to adequate housing contains freedoms. These freedoms include protection against forced evictions and the arbitrary destruction and demolition of one's home, the right to be free from arbitrary interference within one's home, privacy, and family, and the right to choose one's residence, to determine where to live, and to freedom of movement. The right to adequate housing contains entitlements. These entitlements include security of tenure, housing, land, and property restitution, equal and non-discriminatory access to adequate housing, participation in housing-related decision-making at the national and community levels. Adequate housing must provide more than 4 walls and a roof. A number of conditions must be met before particular forms of shelter can be considered to constitute adequate housing. These elements are just as fundamental as the basic supply and availability of housing. For housing to be adequate, it must at minimum meet the following criteria: security of tenure. Housing is not adequate if its occupants do not have a degree of tenure security which guarantees legal protection against forced evictions, harassment, and other threats. Availability of services, materials, facilities, and infrastructure. Housing is not adequate if its occupants do not have safe drinking water, adequate sanitation, energy for cooking, heating, lighting, food storage, or refuse disposal. Affordability. Housing is not adequate if its cost threatens or compromises the occupants' enjoyments of other human rights. Habitability. Housing is not adequate if it does not guarantee physical safety or provide adequate space as well as protection against the cold, damp, heat, rain, wind, or other threats to health and structural hazards. Accessibility, housing is not adequate if the specific needs of disadvantaged and marginalized groups are not taken into account. Location, housing is not adequate if it is cut off from employment opportunities, healthcare services, schools, child care centers, and other social facilities, or if located in polluted or dangerous areas. Cultural adequacy, housing is not adequate if it does not respect and take into account the expression of cultural identity. So there's some information about what this means from the institutions that this discourse is grounded in.
Mayor?
Councilmember Murillo, then Councilmember Bergen, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you. Yeah, again, this is a visionary statement, a resolution of values of our city, that housing is a human right. Not sure why we have to have human rights defined. I think that is a pretty generalized concept that's pretty universally accepted in different contexts. So, you know, I saying that this isn't clear otherwise, I think is incorrect. There are multiple bodies of legislation that identify that. If there were particular issues with the phrasing, I would have loved for this to be part of the stakeholdering process and for this to have been taken seriously before the conversation today. So, you know, I am disappointed to hear that if there were amendments that we didn't address them ahead of time through the normal process. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have an issue with the section 1 of the resolution where it resolves to support the concepts and principles of housing as a human right, which I just heard that the UN Declaration basically spells out what those conditions are. There were a lot of conditions there. And I took an oath to the United States Constitution, not to the United Nations. I respect the United Nations, but we're now talking about supporting concepts that the United Nations have put forth that half the nations in the world don't even abide by, which is probably why we have so many people wanting to come to America for opportunities. So I also have an issue with section number 2, all resolutions or parts of resolution of the city in conflict with, in herewith are hereby rescinded. What does that mean? Because I don't know what resolutions, maybe this is, I guess, a question for our attorney. Can you tell me what resolutions we have that are in conflict with this resolution?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, that's standard language in almost every single resolution, that if there is a resolution that conflicts with this, it's rescinded. It's just standard language. And I'm not aware of any resolution that interferes or conflicts with this.
Okay, but I guess I don't understand. I understand that that's standard in all the resolutions, but this is kind of problematic that we don't really know what possibly is in conflict because it basically says it rescinds them. So I'll just say that I'm not comfortable with that part of it, and I'm not comfortable with the section 1. I understand the intent behind it is a good intention, and certainly we have done a lot in our city to try to solve some of the housing issues, not all of them. It's very complex, and as everybody knows, in terms of dealing with what standards the city has, the zoning laws that we have, where housing can be, what kind of housing can be put in, who's going to pay for the housing, and there's a lot of questions to contemplate. And like I said, I understand the intent behind it, and my heart does go out to the callers that called in, but I just can't support the resolution the way it's written.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11B. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
No.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
No.
Councilmember Burzins,
No.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
That is 6 yeses and 4 noes. The motion passes.
Item number 11C has been removed from the agenda. Would the clerk now please read the title of item number 11D?
Item 11D is Resolution 2021-24, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council's approval of the intergovernmental agreement between the United States Air Force, Buckley Air Force Base, and the City of Aurora's Aurora History Museum and Historic Sites Division.
Motion.
Mayor, move to approve 11D.
So removed by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 11D. Discussion? Seeing none. I'm sorry.
Oh, Mayor, it's Councilmember Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs.
So I just wanted to, again, in the more formal setting, thank our staff for working with Buckley on and with other entities on getting this brought forward and hopefully bringing these artifacts closer to their original home and helping folks repatriate those items if they so choose.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 11D?
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
and Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11E?
Item 11E is Resolution 2021-25, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of the Colorado Congressional Redistricting Commission and Colorado Legislative Redistricting Commission's efforts to promote municipal integrity.
Mayor.
Motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Lawson.
Mayor, I move to approve 11E.
Been moved by Councilmember Lawson, seconded by?
Second, Gruber.
Seconded by Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 11E. Discussion?
Mayor.
Member Lawson.
I think Councilmember Maria was before me.
Councilmember Murillo.
No, I'll defer to the sponsor.
Councilmember Lawson.
Okay, Mayor and Council, this resolution basically is just urging the redistricting commission to keep Aurora whole in a single district and to not really divide our communities and neighborhoods. This was a citizen initiative that was brought to Pfizer, and we had more discussion at study session, so I hope that my colleagues will approve.
Mayor.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you. I wanted to yield the initial time for the sponsor to speak, and thank you, Councilmember Lawson, for bringing this forward. I just wanted to share that I won't be supporting this. In concept, I think it's a good concept. I just think that given all of the, I guess, volatility in the census process that happened under the Trump administration, there was a lot of issues how we collected census data, and then the delay that has caused in some of these commissions and committees to move forward. So they haven't even, I guess they've delayed the process to go through the redistricting because there's incomplete data. So I feel uncomfortable voting for something that I feel like is an incomplete. I guess it's just a little premature. I feel like I don't have all of the information at this time, but I don't know how I feel, specifically about the concept at this time. I just I just personally feel like it's a little premature given that some of these processes have been delayed. And I'd like to see some of them play out before personally giving an opinion. So just wanted to share my thoughts.
Further discussion.
Mayor Dave Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber.
So I wanted to point out why I am supporting this. First off, I understand the delays. We had this thing called COVID last year that affected much more than simply the census. But most importantly, what this ordinance does, and Councilmember Lawson, correct me if I'm wrong, but what the ordinance does is make sure that our representatives at the state level, within the state legislature and in the Senate, are representing Aurora. So when we vote for our state representatives, we're voting for people who have a vested interest in the city of Aurora. And that's why I think this is important.
And Councilmember Gruber, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Further discussion.
Mayor, sorry.
Councilmember Lawson.
And Councilmember Gruber, you are correct in that, what you just stated, it is for that. So I understand that there was delay in the data, and I don't think it's premature at all. I think that's why we had support from a lot of our Aurora delegation to make this statement while they're in the redistricting process. So I still hope I get support for it. Mayor?
Further discussion. Further discussion. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just, I have a question on, and I understand we want to have one voice for the city of Aurora, but if we don't feel that we have had adequate representation for all of Aurora, different sections of Aurora, by our state legislators, are we not, I guess by making this resolution, are we precluding better representation, I guess is what I'm saying. Maybe Councilmember Lawson could answer.
So, I mean, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, essentially what this is just to really, to me, and my interpretation is to make sure that we do have the right representation, make sure that Aurora stays whole. Because again, we could be very districted out. And I think it's important that we keep our communities whole. That's my position on it for the representation. We didn't have all of the Aurora delegation. It was forwarded to them. I know Senator Fields and Senator Brockenfield looked at it as well. So we did have the support, but not by all of our Aurora delegation. But that's how I'm looking at this, this particular resolution.
And Mayor, may I follow up?
Mayor Pro Tem.
So this is not only for the state legislative representative districts, but also for our congressional districts, the U.S. Yes. Congress.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
We need representation in Southeast.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Mario.
I think we all have to chuckle when Francois mentions that. I just want to clarify my comments. Councilmember Lawson, I didn't mean to infer that this is premature review. I just, again, I have to stick to what I know about just the general process about how the census was collected, how data and information was collected. I had so much heartburn, like many folks, over things like the citizenship question and concerns with how that process went about. And I am still looking to see how it kind of moves forward. I know we're not in the middle and the thick of that. I just, I wanted to just express just that knowledge of that makes me unclear on the benefit or not benefit. I don't have an opinion necessarily on how it is. I just feel for me that I'm not able to make that decision. I trust that you have done your due diligence with your stakeholders to be able to do that. And, I've talked to kind of mixed opinions on this. So that has helped inform my decision as well. So, just wanted to clarify that I'm sure you did your process. It was not a statement of your process by any means.
Let me just say that this really doesn't have anything to do with the census at all, other than the fact that it's required constitutionally to redo every 10 years and it changes boundaries. What this says, and it really is a message to the commission itself that will be drawing these lines, is that do all that you can to keep the integrity of the city of Aurora in one congressional district, and as much as possible to keep our to redraw state legislative districts within the city of Aurora. In other words, not have a bunch of fragmented districts that come into part of Aurora and then cover a large swath of other areas. And so it's really to maximize our representation, both in the General Assembly and in Congress. Further discussion? Seeing none, question before us
Mayor,
is Councilmember Moreo.
I'm so sorry. This actually does have to do with the census because we use census data to draw census tracts to determine representation. So I just have a differing opinion, but I think the connection is clear.
Irrespective of what would happen to the census, this is important, whether you agree or disagree with how the census was done. Further discussion? Seeing now, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11E. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
No.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes, hoping for better representation.
Councilmember Group?
Did you say Gruber?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will clerk now please read the title of item number 11F?
11F is Resolution 2021-26, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, declaring the month of April each year as Second Chance Month in the City of Aurora.
Motion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
Motion to approve item 11F.
Been moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by Councilmember to approve item number 11F. Discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a little background and reasoning for bringing this forward. There's some information included in the backup, but essentially those leaving prison after they've served their debt to society face over 44,000 documented legal restrictions. This includes difficulties getting housing, getting jobs, voting, and on and on and on. And starting in 2017, the U.S. Senate declared Second Chance Month in April. Colorado joined that effort that year. And since 2017, several other states have also joined in on the effort. Last Monday, President Biden also declared April Second Chance Month in 2021. And you know, I want to address one thing specifically because some of the feedback I got from the public is, you know, why are you supporting criminals? But I think it's important to point out, you can be both tough on crime, but then also recognize that after folks have served their time, they should be allowed to reenter society. There's a whole host of reasons why that's important, not the least of which is the human element. We're talking about brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, husbands, wives, parents specifically. And so it's really important to offer redemption to these individuals that want to reenter society. And we've made it very difficult for that to happen. Again, a resolution, as we've talked about ad nauseum tonight, is a statement of values. And you know, this resolution in of itself doesn't make significant changes, but I think it's an important statement by this city council that I hope other council members will join in voting, that we recognize these legal restrictions that folks face after prison, and we want to encourage society to remove those restrictions when possible.
Further discussion? Councilmember Coombs.
So yeah, thank you, Councilmember Gardner, for bringing this forward. I think it's important to highlight that particularly restrictions to housing and restrictions to employment have devastating effects on people's lives. And when people have, you know, done their time, they have done what was laid out for them to do as a result of committing a criminal act. It's inhumane to recriminalize them and to undermine their ability to have access to those basic needs and basic rights. And in addition, as I mentioned in study session, I know this does not change the law. It doesn't change any laws. However, access to voting rights are also restricted, not in Colorado, but in other places related to having prior convictions, and in our very own city, having been convicted of a felony at any time in your life makes it so that you don't have access to political participation through running for office. And this resolution does not change that. But I hope that it gives us as a council the opportunity to reflect on that fact and to decide if we have the will to act to ensure that full political participation is restored to people with past convictions.
Discussion. Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gruber.
So I'm going to support this, as I mentioned in during study session. I want to point out, though, that Victims' Rights Week is April 18th through 24th. As I mentioned in study session last year, we had over 3,300 victims of major crimes here in Aurora. So what my point is that I agree that once someone has gone through the system and they're coming out, they should be treated fairly. I also want to point out that there's caveats in there. We aren't going to, we do not recommend of putting a child molester in a child care facility. We don't recommend putting an embezzler in an organization that requires them to deal with money. So there are some limitations to that. But the general concept of, if you've gone through the system, if you've served your time in jail, when you come out, you should have a second chance to start. I do support that.
Further discussion.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes, and I just want to clarify that we are not, this resolution does not talk about any other actions other than section 1, which says the Aurora City Council resolves that the month of April each year shall be known as Second Chance Month. Is that correct?
Staff or the sponsor?
Yeah, that's what's in the resolution.
Right, so no other actions are in this resolution.
It's what's in the resolution.
Thank you.
Further discussion.
Berzins?
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. I'm going to support this too, because I do agree with Councilmember Gardner. But like it's been stated, there's always a flip side to everything. Do we have a resolution in the works for victims' rights coming up soon?
Mayor, I can answer.
Mayor Pro Tem.
At our next council meeting, we will have a victim rights proclamation.
All right, a proclamation, but not a resolution. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking maybe we should have a resolution for that too, so we can show both sides that we appreciate them and respect them.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
Again, I think it's important to point out that this resolution has zero to do with victims. This is purely a statement that once individuals have been punished in jail for their crime against a victim, that they are allowed to re-enter society. So, reading into this that it's disparaging to victims or anything like that is completely off base. This actually only applies to those who have been to prison because they victimized someone else. So I'm really not understanding, I guess, this focus on victims. Those are really two separate matters. If we bring forward a resolution for victims' rights or whatever, I will gladly support that. But that's not really relevant to this conversation.
Further discussion.
Mayor. Councilmember Murillo.
Councilmember Murillo.
All right, thank you. So I sit on the State Advisory Board for Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and I want to just thank Councilmember Gardner and elevate the experience of our youth in the system. And though it's not jail per se. There is a large nexus with folks who are involved in youth in detention facilities and elevating the experience of our LGBTQ plus youth and their experience in the system and how that leads to so many struggles moving forward, and in particular with housing. You know, I do think that that it makes a lot of sense for us to reaffirm this as a value because we know the experience of our queer youth and others. I know that's not the specific focus. I just wanted to elevate that as my experience on that commission, having studied the issue and elevating that as part of the conversation and their experience.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11F. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson, Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Clerk, now please read the title of item number 11G.
11G is Resolution 2021-27, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, in support of the first supplement to intergovernmental agreement between the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Adams, the City of Aurora, and the Aerotropolis Area Coordinating Metropolitan District, establishing the Aerotropolis Regional Transportation Authority.
Motion?
Mayor.
Mayor.
Motion to approve 11G.
Councilmember Gardner?
Motion to approve 11G.
Been moved by Councilmember Gardner, second by Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 11G. Discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 11G?
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
and Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
The motion passes.
The time is now 9:02 p.m. Council will stand at recess for 5 minutes until 9:07 p.m. To give the staff the opportunity to do an announcement for the call-in line. We are now in recess.
Residents who would like to speak on an ordinance and have not already been screened, please press *3 before the item is called by the clerk. For those watching on Channel 8, please call 855-695-3475 to be connected and then press *3. Council is taking a short 5-minute break to allow for any additional speakers to sign up. Again, be patient and stay on the line until the operator is able to take down your information. As long as you hear a prompt after pressing *3 and don't forget the star and can still hear music hold, we are in recess and you will be in line to speak to an operator. Thank you.
The Aurora City Council is now in session. Would the clerk please read the title of item number 12A?
12A is 2021-14, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, rezoning 14.39 acres, more or less, at the southeast corner of Smoky Hill Road and East Ottawa Place from low-density single-family district to mixed-use corridor district, and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Public hearing is now open. Would staff please introduce the item?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Claire Dalby with Planning and Development Services. On March 10th, 2021, the Aurora Planning Commission recommended approval to City Council of the Smoky Hill Coffee Shop zoning map amendment to rezone a parcel of land at the intersection of Smoky Hill Road and East Ottawa Place from R1 low-density single-family zoning to MUC mixed-use corridor zoning. The applicant's reason for the rezoning request was to have mixed-use zoning that is contiguous with mixed-use zoning to the south in order to construct a drive-through coffee shop establishment. Staff determined that the rezoning request was compatible with surrounding development and that it met all criteria for approval. Pertinent questions from the commissioners during the hearing included questions about parking, detention, and business ownership, as well as a subsequent presentation to City Council. Staff and the applicant resolved all questions from the commissioners, and the commissioners voted unanimously to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment to City Council. That's all I have for you tonight, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Berzins.
Oh, it's Bergen.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you. That's okay, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that we are rezoning this land from the residential to mixed use commercial, right?
That is correct.
And that's the parcel that the church, Eastern Hills Community Church, is also on.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of staff? Is the applicant present? Does the applicant wish to speak?
He is, I think he's
evening.
available for questions. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Clint Jamison, I'm the applicant. I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions of the applicant?
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen. Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes, thank you for being here. Did you have any conversations with Eastern Hills Community Church?
Yeah, they're selling us the property, so yeah, we had a lot of conversations.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah.
All right. So they're selling the property, but they're not vacating it?
Yeah, they're selling just about an acre of land to us, and we had to rezone the entire property in order to do the coffee shop on the corner.
Right. Thank you. I understood that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Further questions of the applicant or of staff? Seeing none, then the public hearing is now renew my call for the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on this issue?
Mayor, there's nobody in the public call in line to speak on this issue.
Very well. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 12A?
Mayor, do we have to close the public hearing?
Oh, public hearing is closed. Would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 12A?
May I make a statement before we go to the vote?
Please.
Sorry, I was just waiting for you to close it before I asked. And I'm very supportive of this. We need a coffee shop there. And so I just wanted to say I'm supportive of this.
Very well. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 12A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston? Yes. Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 14A?
Item 14A is ordinance 2021-13, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending section 126-70 of the city code pertaining to insurance.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Gruber.
move to approve 14A.
Moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember
Bergen?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 14A. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 14A?
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilt,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes. And Mayor, I'm sorry, I didn't get the motion in the second for item 12A for the Smoky Hill Coffee Shop.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I don't think I did. I think I followed, I opened up the public hearing, closed the public hearing, but failed to do that.
Motion?
Motion on item number 12A.
Bergen?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen. It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 12A.
Thank you.
We don't have to do the vote again, do we? I wouldn't.
No.
Okay, very well. Okay. Let's see, we just completed 14A.
Yes, and the motion passed for that one.
Okay, will the clerk now please read the title to item number 15A?
15A is 2021-11, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale by the City of Aurora, Colorado, acting by and through its utility enterprise of first lien water revenue for refunding and improvement bonds in one or more series in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $539 million for the purpose of financing and refinancing in whole or in part the cost of additions and improvements to the water system operated by the utility enterprise, pledging certain funds and revenues of the enterprise to the payment of such bonds, prescribing the form of such bonds, and providing other details and connections therewith.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Gardner.
motion to approve item 15A.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by
Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 15A. Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 14A? I'm sorry, 15A.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
and Councilmember Burzins.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 15B?
Ordinance 2021-12, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale by the City of Aurora, Colorado, acting by and through its utility enterprise of first lien sewer revenue bonds, SEAM Facility Improvement Project, Series 2021, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $65 million for the purpose of financing in whole or in part the cost of additions and improvements to the sewer system operated by the utility enterprise, pledging certain funds and revenues of the enterprise to the payment of such bonds, prescribing the form of such bonds, and providing other details in connection therewith.
Motion.
Mayor De Gruber,
Councilmember Gruber.
move to approve 15B.
It's moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by
Gardner.
Councilmember Gardner to approve item number 15B. Discussion. Seeing none, would clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 15B?
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
and Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes.
The clerk now please read the title to item number 15C.
Item 15C is ordinance 2021-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending Chapter 26, adding Article 3, referred to as temporary caps on fees for food delivery and other related matters.
Mayor,
Councilmember Gardner.
motion to approve item 15C.
Been moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 15C. Discussion. Seeing none, would clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 15C?
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Clerk now please read the title to item number 18A.
Item 18A is reconsideration of Resolution 2020-22, review of the powers granted to the city manager by Resolution 2020-22.
Motion.
Burzins.
Councilmember Burzins.
Thank you. Move to approve 18A.
Been moved by Councilmember Burzins, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 18A. With discussion. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 18A?
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
All right. Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
and Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 19A?
Item 19A is consideration to appoint one member to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The following candidates were interviewed at the April 5th, 2021 study session: Jason Schneider, Sandra Sunny Banka, Andrew Roberts, and Sarah Castle.
Without objection, what I would like to do is have the clerk read the names in alphabetical order of myself, mayor, and city council members, and to state your first choice. And then to see if any candidate gets 6. If not, then we would drop off the lowest candidate in terms of the number of votes, and then we would vote again. Is there objection? Seeing none.
Just have a question.
Mayor Pro Tem Berger.
Yes, and I have a question because this is different than the normal process that we've done over, at least since I've been on council since 2015. I know we use this process for the Civil Service Commission, but I just want to make it clear to the public that we do have the option to always nominate someone and then they have to get a second and votes, or we can actually appoint.
Okay.
But
And let me just say, Mayor Pro Tem, that I think at the end, when we do have one that has 6 votes, then there will be a motion to nominate that individual. Without objection, then we will proceed. Clerk, please begin calling the roll in alphabetical order.
Mayor Kaufman,
I vote. My vote is for Sunny Banka.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Sunny Banka.
Councilmember Berzins,
Sunny Banka.
Councilmember Coombs,
Jason Schneider,
Councilmember Gardner,
Sunny Banka.
Councilmember Gruber,
Sunny Banka.
Councilmember Hilt,
Jason Schneider.
Councilmember Johnston,
Jason Schneider.
Councilmember Lawson,
Sunny Banka.
Councilmember Marcano,
Jason Schneider.
and Councilmember Murillo.
Jason Schneider.
Okay, there are 6 votes for Sunny Banka and 5 votes for Jason Schneider.
Mayor.
Nomination is in order. Councilmember Gruber.
I move to appoint Sunny Banka to the.
Nominate, if you could nominate at this point.
An appoint.
Let me defer to the clerk. I thought we would nominate at this point when one applicant had 6.
Well,
that's an
no, he can say he moves to appoint an individual, and if he gets a second, and all 6 of her, yeah.
Very well. Okay.
I move to appoint Sunny Banka to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Been moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to appoint Sunny Banka to the Planning and Zoning Commission. With discussion, seeing none, would clerk please call the roll on the appointment of Sunny Banka to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Councilmember Coombs,
no.
Councilmember Marcano,
No.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
No.
Councilmember Hilt,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yeah, yes. Is this for Sunny Banka?
yes.
Yes, sorry.
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
there are 7 votes in the affirmative for Sunny Banka. The motion passes to appoint Sunny Banka to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 19B.
Item 19B is consideration to appoint 1 member to the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee.
Motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. Move to appoint David Caro to the Oil and Gas Committee.
It's been moved by Councilmember Berzins to appoint David, I'm sorry, his last name?
Caro, C-A-R-R-O.
C-A-R-O, to the Oil and Gas Commission. Is there a second?
Second, Gruber.
And seconded by Councilmember Gruber. Discussion? With clerk, please call the roll on Mr. Caro to the Oil and Gas Commission.
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilt,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
The motion passes to appoint David Caro to the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 19D?
Consideration to appoint 1 member to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board.
I'm sorry, that was 19C. Motion,
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to appoint Lissa Hutchinson to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board.
Second, been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Kano to appoint Lisa, I'm sorry, last name. Last name.
Lisa Hutchinson.
Hutchinson to the Fox Arts Center Board. Discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the appointment of Lisa Hutchins to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board?
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman?
Yes.
Councilmember Arcano?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
I'm sorry, I failed to raise my hand earlier. Are there 2 agenda items on appointing a member to the Aurora Fox Center Board?
There are 2 agenda items. You're correct. It's 19C and 19D. I believe that they accidentally got put on there twice. We've been having some issues with our e-scribe system. Oh, are they 2 different people? Oh, okay. You know what? My city clerk analyst just told me that there's 2 different people they'd like to appoint, and that's why there's 2 different items for that. We usually put it in one item, but I'm not quite sure how that happened.
Okay. Okay, then yes.
Okay, Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
The motion passes for Lisa Hutchinson to be appointed to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 19D?
Consideration to appoint 3 members to the Citizens Advisory Committee on Housing and Community Development.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to appoint Jaime Carolina, Lacunia Baker, and Brittany Noble to the Community Housing and Development Committee.
Is there a second? Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by?
Second.
Councilmember Kano. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19D?
Mayor Kaufman?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano?
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
The motion passed to appoint Jaime, Lacunia, and Brittany to the Citizens Advisory Committee on Housing and Community Development.
Clerk now please read the title to item number 19E.
Item 19E is consideration to appoint 1 member to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board.
Motion?
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
motion to appoint Jessica Johnson.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Berzins to appoint, I'm sorry, what's the person?
Jessica Johnson.
Jessica Johnson to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19E?
Mayor Kaufman?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano?
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
The motion passes to appoint Jessica Johnson to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board.
Clerk now please read the title to item number 19F.
Consideration to appoint 2 members to the Aurora Library Board.
Motion?
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
yes, motion to appoint Tamika Alford and Nora McIntyre to the Aurora.
Second.
And what's the second individual?
Second, Coombs.
Okay, but who's the second person?
Nora McIntyre.
Okay. Discussion? I see none. Would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19F?
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo, Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will clerk now please read the title to item number 19G?
Item 19G is consideration to reappoint 2 members to the Open Space Board.
Mayor.
Mayor.
Motion, I think Councilmember Gruber.
Mayor, I move to approve Victoria Samuel and Wayne Gallagher to the Open Space Board, Open Space Advisory Board.
Councilmember Combs? Is that second? Okay. Been moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember Coombs. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19G?
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
She's frozen.
Councilmember.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Public invited to be heard?
I believe there is one individual that's on. Let me make sure he's still on the line with us. One moment. Okay, Roger, you've been unmuted.
All right, Carmen, it's your turn. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, good evening. My name is Carmen Medrano, and I'm the Executive Director of United for a New Economy. I want to thank the Council's support of the resolution that housing is a human right. Many of our members spoke today, and a few of them were Spanish monolingual speakers. I wanted to make clear that our members understand the symbolic nature of a resolution. We understand this is not statute or law. We view this as a visionary statement, a step in continuing to partner with City Council members that are willing to ensure everyone in our community can live in dignified housing, regardless of skin color, whether you're a newcomer or what's in your wallet. Our members who spoke today, while they are monolingual Spanish speakers, understand the difference between a resolution and an ordinance. Thank you.
Reports. Mayor has no report. Let's see. Councilmember Lawson.
Okay. Mayor, our CML meeting, monthly meeting is going to be on April 16th, so I'll have an update at our next council meeting. Pfizer update, the state update. The state Senate introduced and debated the roughly $35 billion budget bill last week, passing it on Friday. The State House will debate the long bill this week. The proposed budget will seek to restore cuts made in the current fiscal year due to the coronavirus pandemic. The federal update, Congress was on recess last week through the White House, and Congress continues to debate President Biden's infrastructure proposal, the American Jobs Plan. For RTD Reimagine, the RTD board at their April 6th board meeting adopted the guiding principles for Reimagine RTD. I'm just going to kind of just go through some of those things, but I'll send a bigger report to everybody because I have a lot of notes on this for my report. The 6 great guiding principles are going to be mobility, equity, financial, partnerships, and workforce. And again, I'll send out to the mayor and to the full council all of those different guiding points that we're going to be looking at in the next year. I also want to thank Mayor Kaufman, City Manager Jim Twombly, Rachel Allen of the City Attorney's Office, and Katie Rodriguez for participating in the first session of the Civic Engagement Academy. I really appreciate your time and efforts on that. I would like to ask council members if you would be willing to, if you have time in your schedules, to maybe set up a time to come and speak for 5 minutes to the group, because they heard from my experience as an at-large council member, but there in this particular group, we do have some new residents. We have a lot of people who don't know who their district representatives are. So if you would be willing to maybe come and speak to the group as a ward council member and even at large, and to give you your experience, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. People really do want to hear from you. These are our constituents that are taking time out of their weekly lives to participate, and they really would like to hear from more than from me and hear from you all as well. So I would really appreciate if all of you would just maybe come and stop by to one of the sessions. Thank you, Mayor. That's my reports.
Thank you. Councilmember Gruber.
No report.
Councilmember Hiltz.
No report.
Councilmember Gardner.
No report.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you. Councilmember Lawson, you can count me in on participating. I always have a good time there. And I wanted to thank my colleagues for supporting the Housing as a Human Right resolution. I'm excited to engage our residents in this conversation moving forward. I have 2 updates. One related to the RTD Accountability Committee. We'll be wrapping up that committee by June. So we have a couple of months left to finalize recommendations and to share. I've shared out drafts of that report. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions. I wanted to solicit some feedbacks and just to make the council aware, the committee's going to be writing a letter related to Governor Polis's transportation plan, specifically requesting that he increase funding for multimodal transit options. That is not a big pool of money in the bid. It's a 10-year plan. And given that we have environmental goals, we have sustainability goals, and just needs in our transportation infrastructure, we're requesting that there be more funding for multimodal transportation. Additionally, wanted to make the council aware of our the funding proposal and kind of how it breaks down between city, county, and state funding. So CDOT gets 60% of appropriated funding, counties get 22%, and cities get 18%. And I'm going to be making a request to just make aware that we in Aurora have a large transit deficit. I know we've mentioned many times our 20 million deficit in transportation. With this current funding structure, we would only get about $1 million a year, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the 20 million that we've been talking about a year. So we're hoping, not sure that we'll actually get much movement in terms of the legislative process, but I think it's important to make known that we need more support when it comes to transportation funding. So I wanted to give you all an update that we'll be making that request, and I'll specifically be adding the portion about increased funding directly to the city. Though we do live in 3 different counties, we wouldn't see those monies unless we had a specific project. So it's just kind of, we could directly use that money if we were given more of that share. So a little bit of rationale there. And then second, I mentioned at our study session that I'd be making a request for funding. It's a small amount, but I was able to get a breakdown of costs from Claudine McDonald, who is the Chief Community Relations Officer with APD, on some cost estimates for supporting self-defense classes within our AAPI community. This includes staffing costs, training on I guess, historical context of the Asian community for police officers if they were involved, as well as support for the safety alarm kits that I mentioned. There's a small business, the Third Culture Bakery in the district, that is an Asian-owned business that is fundraising for that. We are hoping that we could support them, as well as providing those safety alarm kits for folks who participate in the training. So I was advised to make the request at this time. So I'd be requesting $7,000. It's a really small price tag for, I think, a really big impact on things that folks have already specifically asked for. And it kind of ties into the larger conversation that we started at the last meeting. So didn't want to wait on something that I know the community has asked for. But I do hope that that's not the only thing and that those other conversations continue. So I don't know what process I need to follow, Mayor, to get folks to say yay or nay on the $7,000 request. Could you help advise me on that?
Staff?
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Murillo. I think, we've got the spring workshop coming up, and at that time we'll have we do have some money from 2020 that can be allocated. So that might be a good time to make that request.
Very well.
City Manager, is there any way so I would just like to get moving on these items. Is it possible to make that request ahead of that spring supplemental? I understand that is a process to utilize, but this is an outstanding request that I'd hate to hold off just as a formality for following that budget process.
Yeah, that would be the spring workshop, which is the 24th of April. I think the supplemental is not till first council meeting in May.
Okay.
So it's still a couple of weeks out. So you're saying right. That's the only way to make the request?
Well, we could check and see if there's some money in the council budget, overall council budget.
Okay, that's something that staff can look at. I think that what would be the process if you were to affirm that there would be money in the council budget, then would it be then up to Councilmember Murillo to get 6 members on board to agree to such a proposal?
That's right, Mayor, to fund that. That's right.
Okay, at our next workshop?
Yes, well, that would be preferable.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to recognize military kids in our community. April is the month of the military child. For me personally, my oldest lived in 4 different states, had 4 deployments, and the dandelion is the official flower of the military child, which says that dandelions are resilient. They put down roots anywhere and everywhere. They bloom wherever the wind carries them, and they survive in a broad range of climates, just like the children of those who serve in the armed forces. So I know that schools have done things over the years. I know Edna and John W. Mosley is having some activities, Aurora Quest, K through 8. Our Veterans Commission was interested in some things, but this year with COVID put limitations. But I just want to thank all of those military kids in the city of Aurora for all who they are and what they do. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. I like that about the dandelion and the military kids. That's great. We love our military. I would like to just announce that this coming Wednesday, as in 2 days from now, we have our Ward 3 meeting. It will be virtual again on WebEx. And in order for you to get the link, it's on my my city Facebook page, or it's also on the city calendar, on the city website. And if you don't have WebEx, you can obviously you can download it for free, but you can also call in. There are phone numbers there. You can call in and listen if you don't want to sit up in front of a computer screen, which I totally understand. Like I said, Wednesday night at 6:30, and we are going to have a really exciting presentation. Our police chief, Vanessa Wilson, will be here, and she'll be telling us of what the police are doing now, the changes, her new program. So she'll be available to answer any questions that you have. And as you know, we also have our fire department there, and they'll be there to answer questions. And then, of course, our neighborhood services will talk to you about anything on your mind. And so will I. So we're looking forward to seeing you Wednesday at 6:30. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next Ward 4 meeting is also on Wednesday, the 14th at 6:30. So we're going to be joined by Sergeant Matthew Novak to discuss vehicle thefts and break-ins, and then we're going to be joined by Gordon Tucker and Drake Brownfield to discuss historic preservation in Aurora. And I want y'all to be thinking of some places in Ward 4 that you think might qualify or soon qualify for that. You'll be able to join us by WebEx or Facebook Live. And I also want to wish a Ramadan Mubarak to all who are celebrating, and have a great night.
Councilmember Combs. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, sorry, it just took me a minute to unmute. Most of my committees are getting ready to meet, so I don't have a lot to report as far as those go. I did want to acknowledge, the death of Dante Wright, the killing of Dante Wright. I think whenever these types of events occur, there's still an open wound in our community that continues to hurt for members of our community when we hear about these things and about these repetitions of this type of violence. So I'm going to express solidarity with his community and remind us that we cannot let that commitment falter in making sure that nobody else in our community has to die needlessly at the hands of police.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to give an update on E470. We had our roadway committee on March 25th, and then we had our full board meeting on April 8th, where we approved a resolution for the Sable Boulevard interchange. We also approved the central maintenance facility contract. We also approved a 4-year contract for the road widening project, which will be from I-70 to 104th Avenue to make that also 3 lanes. And then we did approve a contract for IT to Salesforce. We chose Salesforce over Microsoft. Had an operations report, a customer service briefing, and then they talked a little bit about the big snowstorm, and they utilized 22 plows. And they also mentioned a thank you to APD for helping rescue stranded motorists. That's it.
Thank you. Just want to close with, I guess, a request to our residents. If you haven't been vaccinated and you're eligible, and I think pretty soon everybody will be eligible because we'll have enough vaccines for everyone. I really want to encourage you to get a vaccine. I just got my second one last Tuesday. And so nobody's going to be forced to get a vaccine. But the more people that get a vaccine, the greater percentage, the quicker we put the pandemic behind us. So with that, meeting adjourned.